My daughter found the messages herself. She was 13. She wasn't snooping. She was borrowing her grandmother's phone to call me. And then she stopped. And she went completely still. And she read. And she kept reading. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She walked into the kitchen, put the phone face down on the table in front of my mother, and said 7 words. "I know exactly what you've been doing." My mother's face did something I'd never seen before. Not guilt. Not shock. Something colder than both. And that was the moment 4 years of lies cracked open. But to understand what Lily found on that phone, you need to go back to the beginning. Back to when my parents were still the heroes of this story. Back to when I trusted them completely. That's where this really starts. What kind of grandparents smile to your face while secretly making phone calls to destroy your child's future? My parents were good people. That's what I told myself for years. That's what everyone told me. Church every Sunday. Neighbors who waved. A house that always smelled like something was baking. My mother kept photo albums organized by year. My father fixed things without being asked. From the outside, they were exactly what grandparents were supposed to look like. Lily adored them. She ran to my mother every single visit. Arms out. Full sprint. My mother would catch her and spin her and laugh like it was the best moment of her week. My father taught Lily how to fish, how to plant tomatoes, how to whistle through 2 fingers. She called him Poppy. He called her his little champion. I filmed it once. Watched it back that night and thought, she is so lucky. My daughter is so lucky to have this. I was 31. Lily was 7. And I was a single mother who needed that support more than I ever admitted out loud. Her father had left when she was 4. No dramatic exit. He just slowly disappeared. Less calls. Longer gaps. Then nothing. So my parents stepped in. Showed up. Filled the space. And I was grateful. I was so genuinely grateful that I stopped asking questions. Stopped noticing things. Handed them access to my daughter like it was the most natural thing in the world. Because it felt natural. That was the problem. The calls started when Lily was 8. My mother would ring on weekday evenings. Nothing unusual about that. We spoke all the time. But sometimes she'd ask to speak to Lily directly. Just for a few minutes. Just to check in. I'd pass the phone over and go back to whatever I was doing. Dishes. Laundry. Work emails. I was always doing 3 things at once back then. Single mother running on 4 hours of sleep and cold coffee. Lily never said much after those calls. I figured they just chatted. Grandma stuff. How was school? Did you eat your vegetables? What did you learn today? I didn't ask for details. I trusted my mother completely. That trust was the door. And I left it wide open. By the time Lily turned 9, something had shifted. Small things first. She stopped mentioning her school friend Maya as much. Maya's family had moved to the area the year before. Lily had talked about her nonstop for months. Then suddenly, nothing. I asked once. Lily said Maya was boring now. I didn't push it. Then her art class. Lily had begged me for that art class for an entire year. We finally enrolled her in September. She loved it for 3 weeks. Then she wanted to quit. Said she wasn't good at it. Said the teacher was mean. The teacher wasn't mean. I had met her twice. She was warm and patient and genuinely talented. But Lily had made up her mind. I let her quit. I thought I was respecting her feelings. I wasn't seeing the pattern yet. Then came the school play. Lily had been cast in a small speaking role. She rehearsed her lines in the mirror. She was proud. 2 weeks before the performance, she came home and said she'd told the teacher she didn't want to do it anymore. Just like that. No explanation. Just done. I sat her down that night. Asked what was going on. She looked at the floor. Said Grandma thought she should focus on more important things. I paused. I asked her what that meant. She shrugged and went to her room. I stood in that kitchen for a long time. And for the first time, something in my chest told me this wasn't about Lily at all. I told myself it was just Grandma being Grandma. Overprotective. Old-fashioned. I almost convinced myself. But then I started paying attention. And what I noticed next changed everything. Have you ever looked at old family photos and realized every smile was a performance? I started paying attention differently after that kitchen moment. Not dramatically. No confrontations. I just started watching, listening a little closer, noticing things I had been too busy or too tired to notice before. My mother called 3 times that week. Each time she asked for Lily first. Not me. Lily. I stood near the doorway once while they talked. Not close enough to hear words. Just close enough to hear tone. My mother's voice was soft. Calm. The kind of calm that has a direction to it. Lily's responses were short. Yes. No. Okay. I know. When she handed the phone back, her eyes were somewhere else. I took the phone. Asked my mother how she was. She was warm and chatty and completely normal. Asked about my work. Told me my father's knee was acting up. Laughed about something a neighbor did. 5 minutes later, we hung up, and I stood there trying to figure out what had just unsettled me. I couldn't name it yet, but it was there. I started going back in my memory, pulling out moments I had filed away as nothing. 2 Christmases ago, Lily had wanted to show my parents a drawing she made at school. A portrait of our little family. Me, her, and our cat Gerald. She was so proud of it. My mother looked at it and smiled and said it was lovely. Then said quietly, just to Lily, not to me, that it was a shame there was no daddy in the picture. Lily's face changed. I had seen it happen and told myself my mother didn't mean anything by it. Old generation. Doesn't think before she speaks. I filed it under nothing. Last Easter, my father pulled Lily aside in the garden. They talked for almost 10 minutes. When Lily came back, she was subdued. I asked my father what they talked about. He said just grandfather stuff. Told her about when I was young. I smiled and nodded. Filed it under nothing. Last summer, Lily had a birthday party. 8 kids. Chaos and cake and running through the sprinkler. My mother spent most of the party in the kitchen with me. But twice I caught her crouching down next to Lily, talking quietly while the other kids played around them. Lily nodded both times. Serious face. Then ran off to play again like nothing happened. I watched it and thought, she's close with her grandmother. That's sweet. Filed under nothing. The file was full. I just hadn't opened it. I called my sister Dana that Friday night. Dana is 4 years younger than me and has always been my parents' favorite and has never once pretended otherwise. I didn't lead with accusations. I just asked casually whether Mom had seemed different lately. Whether Dana had noticed anything. Dana went quiet for just a second too long. Then said no. Said Mom was just Mom. Said I was probably stressed from work. I asked if Mom ever talked to her about Lily. Dana said of course. She's her grandmother. She loves Lily. I said I knew that. I asked if she said anything specific. Dana said she had to go. Her pasta was boiling over. She hung up in under 4 minutes. Dana never gets off the phone in under 4 minutes. We have spoken at least once a week for 15 years. She once kept me on the line for 40 minutes, describing a disagreement she had with a self-checkout machine. She hung up in 4 minutes. I put my phone down on the counter and looked at it for a long time. Dana knew something, which meant this wasn't just my mother being old-fashioned. This wasn't generational miscommunication. This wasn't an overprotective grandmother with outdated opinions. There were other people in this. There had been conversations I wasn't part of. Decisions made without me. And my sister, my own sister, had chosen a side before I even knew there were sides. I went to check on Lily. She was asleep. Hair across her face. One arm hanging off the bed. Completely peaceful. Completely unaware. I pulled her blanket up. Stood at her door. And thought, what exactly have they been telling her? I needed answers. But the problem with looking for the truth inside your own family is that everyone who knows it has already agreed to keep it from you. And I was about to find out just how long that agreement had been in place. At what point does a grandparent's concern become something far more sinister? I decided to test something small. The following Monday, I told Lily we were going to re-enroll her in art class. Different studio. Closer to home. Better reviews. I made it sound exciting. Lily's face opened up for just a second. I saw the old spark. The one that used to live there permanently. Then it flickered. She looked down. Said she didn't think she was good enough for art class. Said some kids are just naturally creative and she wasn't one of them. Lily was 9. She had been drawing since she could hold a crayon. Her bedroom wall had a mural she painted herself at 7. She had won a school art competition 8 months earlier. I still had the ribbon in a drawer. I asked her who told her she wasn't creative. She said nobody. Said she just knew. I enrolled her anyway. Told her we'd try one class. She didn't argue. But she didn't look excited either. Something had already gotten there before me. Settled in. Made itself comfortable. That weekend my parents came for Sunday lunch. Normal visit. My father fixed a leaky tap. My mother brought a pie. Lily sat close to my mother at the table. Closer than usual. Whispered something in her ear at one point. My mother smiled and patted her hand. I watched it and kept my face completely still. After lunch, my father took Lily to the garden. I helped my mother clear the table. I kept my voice easy. Asked how she thought Lily was doing lately. My mother stacked plates and said Lily was a sensitive child. Said sensitive children needed careful guidance. Said the world wasn't always kind to girls who were too bold too early. I asked what she meant by too bold. She said she just meant Lily needed protecting. I asked from what. She smiled and changed the subject to my father's knee. I let her change it. But I heard exactly what she didn't say. That night after they left, I went through Lily's school bag. Not proud of it. Did it anyway. Nothing unusual. Notebooks. A permission slip I'd already signed. A library book 3 weeks overdue. I checked her tablet next. Her browsing history was normal. Minecraft tutorials. Cartoon clips. A surprising amount of videos about deep-sea fish. Nothing alarming. Then I checked her messages. She was 9. She had a basic phone for emergencies. 3 contacts. Me. My mother. Her school friend Maya, who she had supposedly decided was boring. I scrolled through the thread with my mother. It went back 14 months. My mother texted Lily directly. Regularly. Not every day. But enough. Short messages. Casual on the surface. How are you, my darling? Did you have a good day? You looked tired on Sunday. Is everything okay at school? And Lily replied. More than I expected. Full sentences. Things she hadn't told me. I kept scrolling. The messages shifted around the 8-month mark. Subtle. My mother started asking about specific things. Lily's friends. Her teacher. The art class. Maya. Every time Lily mentioned something positive, my mother would respond with a quiet concern. Maya sounds a bit rough around the edges, doesn't she? That art teacher seems like she pushes children too hard. You don't want to end up exhausted trying to keep up with children who've been doing it longer. One message stopped me completely. Lily had texted that she got a speaking part in the school play. Excited. All caps. My mother's response took 4 hours to arrive. When it did, it said, "That's lovely, darling. Just make sure it doesn't take time away from the things that actually matter. You don't want people to think you're showing off." Lily had replied with one word. Okay. I put the tablet down on the kitchen counter. Walked to the window. Stood there. My mother hadn't been protecting Lily from the world. She had been protecting something else entirely. Something that had nothing to do with Lily and everything to do with me. I didn't have the full picture yet. But I had enough. Enough to know that those Sunday lunches and birthday cakes and fishing lessons had been running alongside something else the entire time. 2 tracks. Simultaneously. For over a year. I picked the tablet back up and kept scrolling. And the further back I scrolled, the worse it got. Because what I found next wasn't just my mother nudging my daughter. It was my mother and father working together. Planned. Deliberate. And aimed directly at one thing, making sure Lily stopped trusting me. What happens when the people who raised you start whispering lies about you, to your own child? I kept scrolling. The messages went further back than I expected. Further back than 14 months. My mother had created a second account. A different number. One I didn't recognize. She had been texting Lily from it since Lily was 8 years old. A whole separate thread. Running quietly underneath everything. I sat at the kitchen counter at 11:30 at night and read every single one. It started small. Grandmotherly. How was your day? Did you eat lunch? Do you miss Poppy? Normal enough that if anyone found it, they could call it innocent. But then it shifted. Slowly. The way a river changes course. You don't notice until you're already somewhere completely different. My mother started asking Lily questions about me. Not obvious questions. Careful ones. Did Mummy seem tired this week? Does Mummy ever get angry at you? Has Mummy been spending a lot of time on her phone? Does Mummy talk about money? Is Mummy happy? Small questions. Scattered across weeks. But they added up. They were building something. And Lily answered every single one because she was 8 years old and it was her grandmother, and it never once occurred to her that the questions had a purpose. I read one exchange 3 times before I fully absorbed it. Lily had texted that I had raised my voice at her after she spilled juice on my laptop. Once. I had apologized within the hour. Lily had forgotten about it by dinner. But she mentioned it to my mother 2 days later in passing. My mother's response was immediate. Oh, darling. That must have been so scary for you. You know you can always talk to me when things feel unsafe at home. Unsafe. My mother used the word unsafe about me raising my voice over a juice spill. To my 8-year-old daughter. I stood up from the counter. Walked to the sink. Ran the cold tap. Stood there with my hands under the water for a long time. Then I went back and kept reading. The pattern became clear fast. Every minor frustration Lily mentioned about me got reflected back to her amplified. Every normal moment of imperfect parenting got reframed. I was painted not as a mother having a hard week, but as someone Lily needed to be cautious around. Someone unpredictable. Someone who needed to be managed. And my mother positioned herself as the safe one. The stable one. The one Lily could always run to. It was methodical. Patient. It had been running for over a year before I found it. Then I found the messages about Lily's father. My mother had told Lily that her father left because of me. Not in one direct statement. Across 6 separate messages over 4 months. Little pieces. He was a good man. He tried very hard. Some people are just difficult to live with. You have his eyes, you know. He would have stayed if things had been different. Not accusations. Just impressions. Dropped carefully. Left to settle. Lily was 8 when she started receiving those messages. 8 years old and being handed a version of her own family history specifically designed to make her doubt me. I closed the tablet. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. From something colder than anger. The kind of feeling that arrives when something you loved turns out to have never existed in the form you believed. I thought about every Sunday lunch. Every birthday cake. Every time my mother held Lily's hand across the table. Every fishing trip with my father. Every spinning, laughing greeting at the front door. All of it real and happening while this other thing ran underneath it. Not instead of the warmth. Alongside it. That was the part one couldn't get my head around. They hadn't stopped loving Lily. They had just decided their version of loving her included dismantling her trust in me. I checked the time. 12:43. I walked to Lily's room. Stood in the doorway. She was on her side, one knee pulled up, hair across her face. Completely still. I stood there and looked at my daughter and thought about every quiet moment she'd had after a phone call. Every flicker of distance. Every interest she'd abandoned. Every time she'd looked at me slightly sideways without me understanding why. She hadn't been pulling away from me. She had been taught to. I went back to the kitchen. Sat down. Opened the tablet one more time. There were still more messages I hadn't read. I thought I had already found the worst of it. I was wrong. Because buried further back in that second thread was a conversation between my mother and my father. They hadn't just been texting Lily. They had been coordinating. And what they had planned next had nothing to do with phone calls or quiet messages. It was bigger than that. And it was already in motion. Have you ever accidentally heard something that you can never, ever unhear? The conversation between my parents was short. 12 messages total. My father wasn't much of a texter. Short sentences. No punctuation. But the meaning was clear enough. My mother had forwarded him something. A screenshot. I couldn't see what the screenshot contained because it had been sent as an image and the image had been deleted. But my father's response to it was still there. He said, "Good. Now we have something to work with." My mother replied, "I told you to be patient." My father said, "How much longer?" My mother said, "Until she does something we can use." She will. She always does. I read it 4 times. She will. She always does. They weren't reacting to something I had done. They were waiting for something. Anticipating it. Which meant this wasn't a response to my parenting. It was a plan that existed independent of anything I actually did. They needed ammunition, and they were collecting it deliberately, and they were prepared to wait as long as it took. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until 4 in the morning going through everything again. Looking for the screenshot. Looking for context. Looking for something that would make this make sense in a way I could live with. I didn't find it. At 4:15, I made coffee I didn't drink and watched the kitchen window go from black to gray. Lily came down at 7. School bag. Cereal. Completely normal morning. She talked about a project on ecosystems she was doing with a partner. Asked if we had any magazines she could cut up for the poster. I found 3 in the recycling. We sat together at the table cutting out pictures of forests and oceans, and she hummed to herself the entire time and had no idea that I had been awake for 22 hours. I drove her to school, watched her walk through the gate, walked back to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and didn't start the engine for 8 minutes. Then I called my mother. I kept my voice completely level. Asked if she wanted to come for tea that week. She said she'd love that. Said she'd bring the lemon drizzle I liked. Warm. Easy. Completely normal. I said Thursday worked. She said Thursday was perfect. We hung up and I put my phone in my bag and drove home and sat in my driveway and thought carefully about what I actually knew versus what I suspected. What I knew. The second phone number. The 14 months of messages. The reframing. The questions about my behavior. The messages about Lily's father. The coordinating conversation between my parents. The deleted screenshot. The phrase "she always does." What I didn't know. What the screenshot contained. What they planned to do with whatever they were collecting. Who else was involved. How far it had already gone outside my family. I needed the last piece. I called Dana. She picked up on the second ring, which meant she'd been expecting me. People who aren't expecting a call let it ring 4 or 5 times. Dana picked up on 2. I noted it and said nothing about it. Asked if she wanted to meet for coffee Friday. She paused. Said she was pretty busy. I said it wouldn't take long. She paused again. Said okay. Fine. Friday. We met at a cafe near her flat. She was already there when I arrived. Sitting with her coat still on. Coffee untouched. She looked like someone waiting for a dentist appointment. I sat down. Ordered tea. Made small talk for exactly 3 minutes. Then I put my phone on the table between us with the message thread open. Dana looked at it. Her jaw tightened. I said nothing. Just waited. She picked up her coffee. Put it down without drinking. Looked out the window. Then back at me. Then at the table. She said, "Mom is just worried about Lily." I asked what specifically she was worried about. Dana said I worked too much. Said I was stressed. Said my parents didn't think Lily was getting enough stability. I asked who made that determination. She said they all talked about it. At Christmas. Last Christmas. Around the table after I had gone home early because Lily had a temperature. I had left early to take care of my sick daughter. They had held a meeting about my fitness as a mother. I picked my phone up off the table. Put it back in my bag. Drank my tea. Dana watched me carefully like she was waiting for an explosion. I didn't give her one. I asked if she wanted another coffee. She said no. I paid the bill. Put my coat on. Told her to drive safe. Walked to my car. Started the engine. And sat there with both hands on the wheel thinking about a table full of people who loved me eating Christmas dinner and deciding what to do about me. Without me. While I was at home putting a sick 9-year-old to bed. I drove home. Made dinner. Helped Lily with her ecosystem project. Put her to bed. Read her 2 chapters of her book. Turned her light off. Closed her door. And then I stood in the hallway and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront anyone. Not yet. Because what I needed wasn't a fight. What I needed was to know exactly how far this had gone. And I knew exactly who could tell me. How do you explain to a child that the people who brought her birthday cakes were slowly poisoning her mind? There was a woman named Carol. Lily's class teacher for the past 2 years. Warm. Observant. The kind of teacher who noticed things and wrote them down. I had spoken to her 3 times at parents' evenings and twice informally at the school gate. She always had something specific to say about Lily. Not generic. Specific. The kind of specific that told you she was actually paying attention. I emailed her on Saturday morning. Asked if we could meet privately. Not about grades. About something else. She responded within 2 hours. Said Monday after school worked. Said she was glad I reached out. That response told me something before I even walked through her door. Monday came. Lily went to after-school club. I sat in a small chair across from Carol in an empty classroom that smelled like glue and pencil shavings. Carol had a folder on the desk in front of her. She hadn't brought it casually. She had prepared for this meeting. I asked her to tell me what she had noticed. She opened the folder. Carol had been keeping informal notes since the previous spring. Not official. Personal. The kind a teacher keeps when something concerns them, but they don't yet have enough to escalate. Lily had changed over the course of the year. Measurably. Carol walked me through it without dressing it up. September. Lily was engaged. Vocal. Put her hand up constantly. Drew elaborate pictures in the margins of her notebooks. Talked about what she wanted to be when she grew up with complete confidence. A marine biologist. An architect. Both simultaneously. Carol had found it charming. November. Lily started second guessing herself out loud. Answering questions correctly, then immediately saying, "Never mind, I'm probably wrong." Stopped putting her hand up as often. Started watching other children before deciding whether her own opinion was worth sharing. January. Lily stopped eating lunch with Maya. Sat alone for 2 weeks before Carol quietly rearranged the seating. Lily had told Carol that her grandmother said some friendships were distractions. February. A creative writing assignment. Children asked to write about their hero. Every other child in the class wrote about a parent, a footballer, a YouTuber, a fictional character. Lily wrote about her grandfather. 2 full pages. Carol, read me 3 lines. Lily had written that her grandfather was the only person who always told her the truth. I kept my face still. Carol closed the folder. She said she had considered contacting me sooner. Said she hadn't been sure it was her place. Said she was telling me now because in the last month Lily had started telling other children that her mother was stressed and shouldn't be bothered with small problems. She had heard Lily say it twice. To 2 different children. In 2 different contexts. My 9-year-old daughter had been managing other people's perception of me. I thanked Carol. Picked up my bag. Walked to my car. Drove to the end of the street. Pulled over. The marine biologist. The architect. Both simultaneously. That was my daughter at the start of year. That was who she had been before a year of quiet, careful, targeted messaging had told her to make herself smaller. Doubt herself louder. Trust me less. I thought about every homework assignment I had helped her with. Every bedtime conversation. Every weekend morning making pancakes and talking about deep-sea fish. Every moment I had been present and trying and completely unaware that something was running alongside all of it, systematically undoing it. The damage wasn't visible from the outside. No bruises. No obvious withdrawal. Just a 9-year-old who had learned to hesitate before she spoke. Who had stopped raising her hand. Who had written 2 pages about her grandfather being the only honest person in her life. I picked up my phone. Called my mother. She answered on the 3rd ring. Bright voice. Asked how my day was. I said fine. Asked if she was free Thursday still. She said of course. Said she'd bring the lemon drizzle. I said perfect. Hung up. Then I called a family lawyer. Not to do anything yet. Just to understand what I was dealing with. Just to know what options existed. The lawyer asked me a series of questions in a calm, flat voice that told me she had heard versions of this before. She asked if there was any documentation. I said yes. She asked how much. I said a lot. She went quiet for a moment. Then said, good. Keep collecting. Don't confront yet. Don't change any routines. Don't let them know you know. I asked her why. She said because right now they think they're still operating in the dark. And people operating in the dark always show you more than people who know they're being watched. I drove home, made dinner, helped Lily with her homework. She got 3 answers wrong on her math sheet and said sorry like she had broken something. I told her wrong answers were just questions in disguise. She looked at me sideways, like she wasn't sure whether to believe that. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Small. Careful. I thought, I am going to fix this. Whatever it takes. Thursday came. My mother arrived with the lemon drizzle exactly as promised. We sat at my kitchen table and drank tea, and she talked about my father's knee and a neighbor's new fence, and I smiled and nodded and listened to every single word. Because I wasn't having tea with my mother anymore. I was gathering evidence. And she was about to give me exactly what I needed. What do you do when the only way to protect your child is to become the villain in your own parent's story? Thursday came. My mother arrived at 2 o'clock exactly. Lemon drizzle in a tin. Coat still on when she hugged me. She smelled like the same perfume she'd worn my entire life. I took her coat. Put the kettle on. She sat at my kitchen table like she had 1,000 times before and talked about my father's physio appointments and a planning dispute 2 streets over and whether I thought Lily needed new winter boots. I poured the tea, cut the cake, smiled at the right moments. My phone was recording on the counter behind the fruit bowl. She stayed 2 hours. In that time, she told me Lily seemed withdrawn lately. Said she worried I was putting too much pressure on her academically. Said children needed room to breathe. Said she and my father had been talking and they wondered if it might help for Lily to spend more time with them. A few weeknights maybe. Just to give me a break. Give me a break. I said that was thoughtful. Said I'd think about it. Topped up her tea. She left at 4. Kissed my cheek at the door. Said call me anytime. Said she was always there. I watched her car pull away from the window. Then I went to the counter. Stopped the recording. Sat down. She had just suggested increased unsupervised access to Lily while sitting in my kitchen eating cake off my plates. While I had 14 months of her messages on my daughter's phone. While I had a lawyer's number saved in my contacts. While I had a teacher's folder worth of documented behavioral changes sitting in my memory. She had no idea. I called the lawyer the next morning. Sent her the message threads that night. All of it. The second phone number. The coordinated messages with my father. The screenshots of the conversation about waiting for something to use against me. The exchange about Lily's father leaving. The teacher's documented observations. I typed a covering email at 11 p.m. and pressed send and sat back and felt something shift. Not relief. Not yet. Something more like the moment before a storm when the air pressure changes and everything goes very still. The lawyer called me Friday afternoon. Said what I had was significant. Said the messaging pattern combined with the documented behavioral changes in Lily was enough to support a formal reduction in contact. Said if they escalated, she had enough to counter it. Said I needed to make a decision about how I wanted to proceed. I already had. That Sunday I called my mother. Kept my voice even. Told her we needed some space. Told her I needed to focus on Lily's routine and stability for a while. Told her visits would be paused until further notice. No accusation. No raised voice. No list of everything I knew. My mother went silent for 4 full seconds. Then she said, "What have I done?" Not what's wrong. Not is everything okay. What have I done? Present tense. Immediate defensiveness before I had named a single thing. I said I just needed space. Repeated it. Kept it simple. Said I'd be in touch. She said this wasn't fair. Said she had done nothing but love Lily. Said I was being dramatic. Said I sounded like I'd been talking to someone. That last one landed oddly. Sounded like she'd been thinking about this possibility. Had a response ready. I said goodbye. Hung up. 40 minutes later my father called. I let it go to voicemail. He left 3 minutes of calm, measured words about how my mother was devastated. About how families didn't just cut each other off. About how Lily would suffer without her grandparents. About how I needed to think carefully about what I was doing. Not once did he ask what had happened. Not once. Dana texted that evening. 2 lines. Said Mum was in pieces. Said I owed her a conversation. I read it. Put my phone face down. The calls kept coming for the next 5 days. My mother, my father, Dana, an aunt I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Each one a variation of the same thing. You're being cruel. You're overreacting. Lily needs her family. What kind of mother does this? I answered none of them. Lily noticed I wasn't arranging visits. Asked once if we were going to Grandma's soon. I said not for a while. She looked at me. Didn't ask why. Just nodded and went back to her book. That small nod told me something. A child who had genuinely loved those visits without complication would have pushed back. Lily just nodded. She already knew something was wrong. She had known longer than me. I sat with that for a long time. Then I got up, made dinner, helped with homework, read 2 chapters at bedtime, turned the light off, stood in the hallway in the quiet, and thought, this is the right thing. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when it costs everything. I thought the silence would hold for a while. I thought they'd give it a few weeks and then try a different approach. What I didn't expect was how fast they moved, or who they decided to involve next. Because my parents weren't finished. They had barely started. And what came next didn't come through phones or family dinners. It came through a letter, with a solicitor's name at the top. Can a child unlearn what grandparents spent years teaching her to believe? The solicitor's letter arrived on a Wednesday. Plain envelope. My name typed on the front. I knew what it was before I opened it. Set it on the counter. Made coffee. Drank half of it. Then opened it. My parents were applying for grandparent contact rights. In the UK, grandparents have no automatic legal right to see grandchildren. But they can apply to a court for permission to do so. The letter was formal and precise and written in the language of concern. It said my parents were worried about Lily's well-being. Said the sudden removal of significant attachment figures posed a developmental risk. Said they had attempted to communicate with me and been met with silence. Said they were seeking the court's assistance reluctantly and only out of love for their granddaughter. Love for their granddaughter. I read it twice. Put it down. Called my lawyer. She had seen it coming. Said we were prepared. Said to let her handle the legal response and to focus on one thing in the meantime. Lily. So that's what I did. I found a child therapist named Dr. Miriam Hassan. She came recommended by Carol, Lily's teacher. Specialist in family dynamics and childhood emotional development. Her waiting room had plants everywhere and a small fish tank in the corner. Lily walked in and immediately pressed her face against the glass to look at the fish. I took it as a good sign. I didn't tell Lily why we were going. Not the full reason. I told her that sometimes it helped to talk to someone outside the family. Someone neutral. Someone whose only job was to listen. Lily looked at me carefully and said, like a referee. I said exactly like a referee. She seemed satisfied with that. Dr. Hassan saw Lily alone for the first 3 sessions. Then she asked to see me separately. Then both of us together. She didn't share specifics of what Lily said in their individual sessions. But after our first joint session, she walked me to the door and said quietly that Lily was a remarkably perceptive child who had been carrying a significant amount of adult confusion for someone her age. She said it gently, but I heard what it meant. The sessions became weekly. Lily started talking on the drive home. Not about the sessions specifically. Just talking. More than she had in months. She told me about a girl in her class who collected erasers shaped like food. She told me she'd changed her mind about marine biology and was now considering volcanology. She told me Gerald the cat had started sleeping on her pillow and she didn't mind. Small things. But they were her things. Coming back. For weeks in, Dr. Hassan asked me to come alone. She sat across from me in the plant-filled room and asked about my own childhood. I told her it was fine. Normal. Good even. She asked me to be more specific. I started talking and kept talking for 40 minutes, and by the end, I had described a childhood that was loving and warm and also consistently conditional. Praise that arrived with footnotes. Affection that had expectations attached. A mother whose love came packaged with a quiet ongoing assessment of whether you were meeting her standards. I had never described it that way before. Had never let myself. Dr. Hassan said, so this isn't new behavior. This is a pattern you grew up inside of and normalized. I sat with that. She was right. My mother had always operated this way. With me. With Dana. The difference was that I had accepted it as love because it was the only version of love I'd been offered. And now she was doing it to Lily. And I could see it clearly from the outside precisely because I hadn't been able to see it from the inside. I drove home slower than usual that night. Lily was in bed. I checked on her. She was asleep with Gerald on the pillow exactly as described. I stood in the doorway for a while. Thought about my own childhood bedroom. My own mother standing in that doorway. The warmth I felt then. The warmth that was real and also came with strings I was too young to see. The legal process moved in the background. Letters. Responses. Dates being set. My lawyer handled most of it. I focused on Lily. On the weekly sessions. On the drive home conversations. On pancake mornings and deep-sea fish documentaries, and helping with the ecosystem project that had somehow expanded into a full display board in the hallway. 6 weeks after the session started, Lily asked me a question in the car. She said, "Mom, are we ever going to see Grandma and Poppy again?" I kept my eyes on the road. Said I didn't know yet. Said some things were being sorted out by adults. Said it wasn't her fault and it had nothing to do with anything she'd done. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I know it's not my fault." She said it simply, cleanly, like she had already worked it out and just needed to say it out loud. I reached over and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back, kept looking out the window. The court date was set for 6 weeks away. My parents had submitted their formal application. My lawyer had filed our response with every piece of documentation attached. 14 months of messages. The coordinating conversation. The teacher's observations. All of it. Formal. On record. And my parents had no idea what was waiting for them when they walked into that courtroom. None at all. What do you do when toxic people discover that boundaries don't scare them? They motivate them. The court date was 8 weeks out. My lawyer said to stay quiet. Stay consistent. Don't engage. I followed that advice exactly. Didn't answer calls. Didn't respond to texts. Kept Lily's routine identical. School. Therapy. Home. Weekends steady and predictable. I became very boring on purpose. Nothing to document. Nothing to use. My parents did the opposite. 2 weeks after the solicitor's letter, my mother started showing up at places. Not at my house. Smarter than that. She showed up at Lily's school at pickup time twice in 1 week. Stood near the gate. Not close enough to be asked to leave. Just visible. Just there. Lily saw her the second time. Stopped walking. Looked at me. I took her hand and kept moving. Said nothing. That night Lily asked why Grandma was at school. I said I didn't know. Asked how she felt seeing her. Lily thought about it. Said confused. Said Grandma looked sad. Said she felt sorry for her but also felt strange. Couldn't explain the strange part. I wrote it down word for word after Lily went to sleep. Sent it to my lawyer. The school appearances stopped after I contacted the school directly. The head teacher was professional and immediate. Said they would monitor the situation. Said if it continued they had protocols. It didn't continue at school. It continued elsewhere. My mother contacted Lily's after-school club. Called the coordinator. Introduced herself as Lily's grandmother. Said she was concerned about Lily's welfare. Said Lily had seemed distressed recently. Said she wanted to flag it in case the staff had noticed anything. The coordinator called me the same afternoon. Slightly uncomfortable. Said she felt I should know. Said nothing concerning had been observed about Lily. Said Lily was consistently one of the happiest children in the group. I thanked her. Called my lawyer. Added it to the file. Then my mother called Lily's pediatrician. I found out because the receptionist left me a voicemail. Said a family member had called requesting information about Lily's recent appointments. Said they had not disclosed anything. Said they wanted me to be aware. I called back and flagged it formally. The practice manager was direct and clear. Said it was a data protection matter. Said it had been documented. 3 separate institutions in 2 weeks. She was building a welfare concern narrative. Planting seeds with anyone who had professional contact with Lily. If even one of them had been less careful, less professional, less inclined to call me first, the narrative would have started to root somewhere official. That was the plan. Get a professional to raise a concern. Turn it into a paper trail. Use it in court. It didn't work. But it told me exactly what they were willing to do. My father was quieter about it. More strategic. He contacted 2 people from my past. A woman I had worked with 3 years earlier who he somehow knew through a mutual connection. And a neighbor from my old street who had moved the same year I did. I don't know what he said to either of them. I know because the woman from work sent me a message. Said my father had reached out asking if she remembered me. Said the conversation had felt odd. Said she wanted me to know. I sat with that one for a long time. My father had gone outside the family. Had reached into my professional past looking for something. Anyone who might have a negative impression. Anyone who might remember a bad day or a difficult moment or a time I'd been less than perfect. She will. She always does. He was still looking for something to use. I added everything to the file. Kept my routine. Kept my face neutral at school pickup. Kept Lily's sessions weekly. Kept my own sessions with Dr. Hassan going. She had suggested I continue seeing her independently, and I had agreed without much resistance, because somewhere in the 4th week I had started to understand that this situation had roots in my own history that needed addressing regardless of how the court case ended. Dana called on a Tuesday night. I answered. First time in 6 weeks. She didn't start with pleasantries. Said Mom and Dad were struggling. Said the legal process was tearing the family apart. Said I needed to consider what I was doing to everyone. Said Lily would grow up without grandparents because of my choices. I let her finish. Then I asked her one question. I asked if she knew about the second phone number. Silence. Long enough that I had my answer before she spoke. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I said okay. Told her I loved her. Said I hoped she was well. Hung up. Lily had a good week at school. Got full marks on her ecosystem project. Came home holding it above her head like a trophy. Gerald tried to eat the corner of it. We laughed for 5 minutes straight. I stuck it on the fridge with 4 magnets. The court date moved closer. My lawyer called on a Thursday. Said my parents' legal team had submitted a character assessment request. Said they wanted to interview people from my life. Colleagues. Neighbors. Anyone who would speak about my parenting. Said it was standard, but also said it told her something about their strategy. They had moved from planting welfare concerns to building a character case against me. She said, they're scared. Scared people escalate. I asked if we were ready. She said we were more than ready. I asked what more than ready meant. She said it meant that everything they had submitted so far had been met point by point with documented counter-evidence. Said that the message threads alone had already shifted the tone of the preliminary correspondence significantly. Said the other side had gone notably quieter in the last 10 days. Notably quieter meant they had seen what was in the file. They knew I had the messages. I hung up, stood in the kitchen, looked at Lily's ecosystem project on the fridge. Her name in big letters across the top. A drawing of a coral reef in the corner that was genuinely impressive. Gerald sitting underneath it on the floor looking up at it like he was considering eating the rest. 6 weeks to the court date. I was ready. What I didn't know was that the quieter they went in the legal correspondence, the louder something else was getting. Because while my parents were focused on me and the courtroom, Lily had been doing something I hadn't asked her to do and hadn't expected. She had been going back through her own phone, reading those messages herself. All of them. And she was about to come to me with something that would change the entire shape of what happened next. What happens when a teenager finds the receipts and realizes everything she was told was a lie? Lily was 10 by the time the court date arrived. Not a teenager yet, but not the same 9-year-old who had handed me the phone and shrugged and gone to her room either. 10 months of weekly therapy. 10 months of study routine. 10 months of pancake mornings and ecosystem projects and drive-home conversations had done something visible. She stood differently. Answered questions without immediately taking them back. She still hadn't asked me directly about the messages. I hadn't shown them to her. Hadn't planned to. Dr. Hassan and I had discussed it carefully. The decision was to let Lily lead. If she asked, we'd answer honestly and age appropriately. If she didn't, we wouldn't push it. She was 10. She didn't need the full weight of it yet. But Lily had found her own way there. I didn't know it until a Sunday morning 3 weeks before the court date. I was making pancakes. Lily was at the kitchen table. Quiet in a way that was different from the old quiet. Not distant. Concentrated. She had her phone in front of her, and she was reading something, and her face was doing something I hadn't seen before. Not upset. Not angry. Something more like a person solving a problem and reaching the answer and not being entirely sure what to do with it. I put a plate in front of her. She looked up. Said, "Mum, can I ask you something?" I sat down. Said, "Of course." She said, "Did Grandma tell me things that weren't true?" I kept my face steady. Asked what made her ask that. She turned her phone around. She had gone back through the message thread with my mother. The original one. The one I had found. She had read it herself. All of it. 14 months of messages sitting in her own phone that she had apparently never fully processed when they were arriving because she was 8 and 9, and they were from her grandmother, and they had arrived wrapped in warmth and familiarity. Reading them back at 10 was a different experience entirely. She had a message highlighted. My mother's response to the school play. "That's lovely, darling. Just make sure it doesn't take time away from things that actually matter. You don't want people to think you're showing off." Lily said, "I quit the play because of this message. Didn't I?" I said yes. "I think so." She looked at the phone. Then at me. Then back at the phone. Said, "There are loads like this." I said, "I know." She asked how long I had known. I told her the truth. Told her I found out about a year ago. Told her I had been handling it carefully because I wanted to protect her. Told her I hadn't shown her the messages because she was young and I didn't want her to carry something that was an adult problem. She listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she said, "So the court thing is about this?" I said yes. She was quiet for a moment. Gerald jumped onto the chair beside her. She put her hand on him automatically. Didn't look down. Then she said, "I want to talk to the person at court. The one who asks children what they want." She meant the Kafkas officer. The court-appointed child welfare guardian assigned to Lily's case. Lily had met her once already for an initial assessment. The officer had the authority to speak directly with Lily and submit her own independent report to the court. I said she could absolutely do that. Said I would arrange it. Lily nodded. Looked back at her phone. Scrolled a little further. Stopped on another message. The one where my mother had told her that her father left because of me. She read it. Her jaw moved slightly. She put the phone face down on the table. Said, "That's not true either. Is it?" I said no. Said her father had his own reasons that had nothing to do with me being difficult to live with. Said those were complicated adult things that I would explain more when she was older, but the short version was that what Grandma told her was not accurate. Lily nodded. Processed it. Said, "Okay. Just okay." Moved on. The way children do when they've already half known something and the confirmation is almost a relief. She ate her pancakes. I drank my coffee. Gerald walked across the table twice and was removed twice. We didn't talk about it again that morning. But that afternoon Lily asked if she could write things down. Things she remembered. Moments that now looked different after reading the messages. I said yes. Got her a notebook. She sat at the kitchen table for 2 hours and wrote. I didn't read it. Didn't ask to. It was hers. She handed it to me before bed. Said, "Can you give this to your lawyer?" I took it. Said I would. Said she was incredibly brave. She said, "I'm not being brave. I'm just telling the truth." Went to her room. Closed the door. I sat at the kitchen table with my daughter's notebook in my hands and didn't open it. Just held it. Thought about the 9-year-old who had stopped raising her hand in class. Who had quit the play. Who had written 2 pages about her grandfather being the only honest person in her life. Then I thought about the 10-year-old who had just sat across from me and read 14 months of manipulation and asked calm, clear questions and handed me a notebook full of her own testimony. I called my lawyer the next morning. Read her the relevant sections. She went quiet for a moment. Then said, "This changes things considerably." I asked how considerably. She said, "I think they're going to settle before we even get to the courtroom." She was right. But not in the way I expected. Because settling didn't mean my parents backed down quietly. It meant one of them did something I never anticipated. Something that cracked the whole structure open from the inside. And it started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. What does it look like when a child who is nearly broken chooses to build something extraordinary instead? My father called on a Tuesday morning. I almost didn't answer. Stood there watching his name on the screen for 4 rings. Then picked up. He didn't start with pleasantries. Didn't start with the calm, measured voice from the voicemail months ago. He started with, "I need to talk to you. Just you. Not through lawyers." I said I was listening. He was quiet for a moment. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "Your mother doesn't know I'm calling." I sat down. He talked for 22 minutes. I didn't interrupt once. What he said I won't repeat in full because some of it belongs only to that phone call, and some of it was about things between him and my mother that were theirs alone. But the shape of it was this. He had gone along with it. He had told himself it was coming from a good place. He had told himself my mother was just protective, just worried, just a grandmother who loved her granddaughter and wanted to be involved. He had repeated those things to himself for long enough that he had stopped examining whether they were true. Reading our legal response had made him examine it. Seeing Lily's documented behavioral changes written formally in a court document had done something to him that the months of family pressure and phone calls had not. He said he saw Lily's name next to words like withdrawn and self-doubting and decreased confidence, and something in him had stopped. He said, "She was my little champion." I didn't say anything. He said he wasn't calling to ask me to drop the case. Said he wasn't calling to negotiate. Said he was calling because he thought I deserved to hear from him directly that he knew what had happened and he was sorry. Said he understood if sorry meant nothing at this point. Said he would support whatever outcome the court reached. Then he said, "Your mother isn't going to stop. Not on her own. You need to know that." I asked what he meant. He said my mother had been in contact with someone from social services. Not officially. A personal connection. Someone she knew through a charity she volunteered with. Said she had been having informal conversations. Laying groundwork. Said he had found out 3 days ago and told her to stop. Said he didn't know if she had. I called my lawyer before his car had left my street. She moved fast. Contacted the relevant authority directly. Flagged the potential conflict of interest. The informal contact was investigated and closed within a week. The personal connection my mother had been speaking to was removed from anything related to our case. My lawyer said it was the other side's biggest mistake. Said it confirmed a pattern of calculated interference that was now formally on record in 2 separate contexts. My mother's legal team went silent for 5 days after that. On the 6th day they made contact. Proposed a settlement. No court appearance. A formal agreement that my parents would have no unsupervised contact with Lily and that all future contact would be subject to my approval and Lily's expressed wishes, as documented by Dr. Hassan. My lawyer said take it. I took it. Signed the paperwork on a Friday afternoon. Sat in my lawyer's office with a cup of tea going cold on the table beside me and signed my name and felt nothing dramatic. No triumph. No grief. Just the particular quiet of something being formally over. I drove home. Picked Lily up from school. She was talking before she reached the car. Something about a science experiment involving vinegar and bicarbonate of soda that had gone significantly further than the teacher intended. She was laughing. Full laugh. Head back. The laugh she used to have at 7 before any of this started. I drove and listened and didn't say anything about the paperwork. That weekend, we went to the coast. Just us and Gerald in his travel carrier complaining the entire way. We walked on the beach. Ate fish and chips from paper wrapping. Lily collected 7 interesting rocks and named each one. The wind was sharp and cold and completely indifferent to everything that had happened in the past year and a half. Lily ran ahead on the sand. Turned back to look at me. Yelled something the wind took away. I yelled what back. She yelled it again. Still couldn't hear it. She gave up and ran back and grabbed my hand and pulled me forward. We walked for 2 hours. Months passed. Dr. Hassan reduced sessions to fortnightly, then monthly. Lily's school reports came back changed. Engaged. Vocal. Puts her hand up consistently. Shows strong creative confidence. Her teacher, a new one now, not Carol, but equally observant, had written in the margin that Lily had a remarkable ability to consider multiple perspectives simultaneously. the marine biologist, the volcanologist. Still both. Simultaneously. Lily turned 11, 12, 13. Each year added something back. Confidence that had been carefully removed piece by piece came back differently than it left. Harder. More considered. She knew now that it could be taken. That knowledge made her hold it differently. At 13, she asked to see the full message thread. Not just the parts she'd found herself. Everything. I sat with Dr. Hassan's guidance in my head and said yes. Printed it out. Sat with her at the kitchen table while she read. She took 40 minutes. Didn't speak during. When she finished, she straightened the pages. Put them in a neat pile. Looked at the wall for a moment. Then said, they really thought this would work. Not a question. An observation. Slightly baffled. Like she was looking at a poorly constructed argument and couldn't understand how anyone had expected it to hold. I said they did. She said it almost did. I said almost. She nodded. Put the pages aside. Asked what was for dinner. I said pasta. She said good. Set the table. At 14, she won a regional art competition. First place. A piece she had made herself. Mixed media. Bold. Completely unafraid. The teacher who entered her said she had done so without telling Lily first, because she wanted Lily to win it without the pressure of knowing she was being watched. Lily stood in front of that piece at the exhibition with her hands in her pockets, looking at it the way she used to look at her grandfather. Like it was something trustworthy. I stood behind her and thought about a 9-year-old who had been told she wasn't creative. My mother sent a card when Lily turned 14. Short message inside. Said she was proud of her. Said she hoped she was well. Lily read it. Put it on the kitchen counter. Left it there for 2 days. Then put it in the recycling without saying anything. She didn't need revenge. Didn't want acknowledgement. Didn't need the last word. What she had built was simply better than anything they had tried to take. There's one more thing. Something Lily said to me the night before she started secondary school. We were sitting in the kitchen late. She should have been asleep. She asked me a question I hadn't been asked before and haven't been asked since. And the answer I gave her was the truest thing I've said out loud in years. That's where this ends. If you could send one warning to every parent who still trusts blindly, what would it be? Lily should have been asleep. It was 11:15. School started the next morning. Secondary school. New building. New teachers. New everything. I had checked on her at 10, and she had been in bed with the light off and Gerald curled at her feet. I thought she was asleep. She wasn't. She appeared in the kitchen doorway at 11:15 in her school uniform. Not the next day's uniform. The old one. The one from primary school that was slightly too short now and had a paint stain on the left cuff that never fully came out. She was holding it by the collar. Looking at it. I asked what she was doing. She said she found it at the back of her wardrobe. Said she didn't know why she'd kept it. Sat down at the table. Put the uniform flat on the surface in front of her. Smoothed it out with her palms. Then she said, "Mom, did you ever stop loving them? Grandma and Poppy, when you found out?" I sat down across from her. Thought about it properly. Didn't rush an answer. Said no. That was the hardest part. You can know exactly what someone did and still love the version of them you thought they were. She looked at the uniform. Said, "That's confusing." I said, "Yes, it is. It stays confusing for a long time." She was quiet for a moment. Gerald came in from wherever he'd been and sat next to her chair and stared at the uniform like it had personally offended him. Lily said, "I don't hate them." I said I knew. She said, "But I don't want them near me either." I said that made complete sense. Said both things could be true at the same time. Said she didn't have to choose between hating someone and letting them back in. Said there was a whole lot of space between those two things and she was allowed to live in it for as long as she needed. She nodded slowly, like she was filing it away. Then she said, "Why did they do it?" I had thought about this question for 4 years. Had talked about it with Dr. Hassan across more sessions than I could count. Had turned it over at 4 in the morning more times than I wanted to admit. I said, I think they needed to be the most important people in your life. And they were afraid they wouldn't be. So instead of just being good grandparents and earning it, they tried to make sure of it. By making you doubt everyone else. Lily considered that. Said, "That's a really sad way to love someone." I said, "Yes, it is." She picked up the uniform, folded it carefully, set it aside, said, "I'm going to be different." Not dramatically, not as a declaration, just quietly, as a statement of fact. The way she said things now, clean and certain and completely her own. I said I knew she would be. She stood up, pushed her chair in, picked up the folded uniform, paused at the door, said, "Mum, you were right to choose me." Walked back to her room. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that. Thought about a Tuesday phone call I hadn't listened to. A kitchen I had stood in not knowing what had unsettled me. A school play Lily had quietly abandoned. A folder a teacher had kept just in case. A lawyer answering on the first ring. A child sitting across from me reading 14 months of messages with calm, clear eyes and asking if what she'd been told was true. I thought about my father's 22-minute phone call. About signing paperwork on a Friday afternoon. About fish and chips in paper wrapping on a cold beach. About a regional art competition and a piece made by a girl who had been told she wasn't creative. About a 14-year-old putting a card in the recycling without a word. Here is what I know now that I didn't know when this started. The people closest to you are not automatically safe for your children. Love and harm are not opposites. They can arrive in the same hands at the same time. Warmth does not cancel out damage. A birthday cake does not undo a whispered lie. Trust is not a gift you give because someone is family. It is something you watch for, something you verify, something you protect with both hands, especially when protecting it costs you something. Your child's instincts are data. When they go quiet after a phone call, that is data. When they abandon something they love, that is data. When they write 2 pages about someone being the only honest person in their life, that is data. Pay attention to the data before you need a lawyer to help you read it. And if you are already in the middle of something like this, if you are reading this at 11 at night because something in your chest has been quietly unsettled for months and you haven't yet let yourself name it, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not overreacting. You are not being cruel. You are not destroying your family. You are protecting your child. That is the most fundamental thing a parent does. Everything else is secondary. Every relationship, every tradition, every family dinner and birthday cake and fishing trip. Secondary. Your child's safety and sense of self and ability to trust their own instincts. That comes first. Every single time. Lily starts secondary school tomorrow. She is ready in a way I couldn't have predicted 4 years ago when I found those messages. Not because the damage didn't happen. It did. But because she faced it, named it, chose not to carry it as shame, chose to carry it as information instead. She knows what manipulation looks like now. She will recognize it faster than most adults. She will not explain away the quiet feeling in her chest that tells her something is wrong. She will not file things under nothing. She will raise her hand. She will keep her friends. She will do both things simultaneously. She will be the marine biologist and the volcanologist and the artist who wins competitions and the girl who names rocks on the beach and puts cards in the recycling without a second glance. She will be exactly who she was always going to be, before anyone tried to make her smaller. If this story stayed with you, if something in it felt familiar, leave a comment below. Not for me. For the next person who finds this video at 11 at night because something in their chest has been quietly unsettled and they haven't let themselves name it yet. Tell them they're not alone. Tell them to pay attention. Tell them to choose their child. Every single time. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this video helped you in any way, share it. Someone in your life might need it more than you know. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, subscribe. There are more voices that need to be heard. More last laughs still coming.